Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the farm. You can see Titus on the right, Maximus on the left. They're doing pretty good. Still a little skittish and a little standoffish, but that is coming every day. We get better and better. If I approach them, eye to eye, they see me coming or they see me reaching out for them, they'll kind of walk away. But if I kind of just come in and ignore them and just kind of do my thing, they'll kind of ignore me and just accept me for being in the area. I can brush Titus pretty good. Maximus over here on the left, still a little skittish when I touch him. The Amish, they don't imprint their babies. They don't imprint their foals. And they got a reason for it. And my Amish buddy up in Ohio explained it to me. They, they dock their tails. And the reason they dock their tails is because the Amish that breed draft horses, they know that there are so many people across the country that show them. And they show them in the halter class, and then the halter class turns into the 2-year-old class, and then the 2-year-old class eventually turns into a hitch class where you got 2 horses pulling a wagon or a cart, and then it turns into a 4-hitch and hopefully a 6-hitch. The way the rules are written, and I understand why, but you can't show unless you have a docked tail. But when I got Gene and Grace, my buddy in South Dakota, his wife and their children, they had imprinted them. They had petted them and loved on them every single day. And when I got them, they were fully acceptant of me. The Amish, they want their foals to be wild-eyed and scared. And the reason is because when you're a prospective buyer and you're buying for the halter class, which eventually is going to lead into the cart class and hopefully into a hitch class, you want to be able to see the movement of the horse. So when you take it into the arena and you just whip that flag just a little bit, just the noise of that flag will make that little foal, run up and down the arena. And you can see his movement, his high prancing and keeping his head up high and all that kind of stuff. And they'll put a lead rope on him, and that little Amish boy will run next to him, so that he can get him going back and forth, because sometimes the horse doesn't know, where he's supposed to go. But if they're imprinted, then all they're going to do is just stand right there with you. And when you try to get them to leave and go run and demonstrate your motion, they're not going to. They're just going to stay right there in your shadow like a shy little child. So that's why the Amish don't imprint them. I had told you the other day that I was starting to tell you, and then I got distracted from something else. But This is day 5 that these little guys have been here. They're not tied up right now. And you see that Max went right into his stall, which is Grace's stall, and Titus went right into his stall, which is Jean's stall. And, you know, I told you they went to the auction in Indiana, then they got thrown on an 18-wheeler, they got trucked to Texas, then they got thrown into a holding yard with, you know, 150 other horses. And then they were there for 3 days, and then I picked them up and I trucked them from Texas back to Georgia. And they're like, what the crap? You know, for the last 5 days, 6 days, we have been just going all over the place, and we just got taken away from our mom. So we're super confused and we have no idea what's going on. So that's compounding their nervousness as well. But you see they're doing a lot better, and I'll go over here and brush them in just a second and let you see. But you'll see that Titus will be a little jumpy and a little skittish, but he'll let me do it. He may walk off, but I'm sorry, Maximus, if I said Titus. Maximus on the left. Their stickers are still on their tails. I decided I got Maximus sticker off, but all the glue's on there. I got Titus halfway off. I've had all kind of suggestions, you know, to get the stuff off, and I'm sure every one of them will work. The problem is that they're just so skittish and so scared right now. Messing with their tails is just adding to the trauma. So I'm just going to wait until they know that I'm no threat. I'm going to be moving them out of the barnyard. I'm going to be putting them in paddock 3 so that Jean and Grace can only have a fence separating them. And then I'll leave them in there for a week. Right now, like I told you last week's video, we've got 2 fences and a driveway separating, so they can't smell each other. They can't physically get to each other. You know, they're 20, 25 feet away from each other. So by moving them into paddock 3, they'll get right next to each other. They'll be able to, you know, smell the bodies and smell the noses and breathe on each other and all that. And we'll do that for about a week. And then we'll, you know, let them all get in the same paddock together. Once they get in the same paddock, Jean and Grace will be great with them. And they'll show them everything else, that it's okay for me to be around them. So let me go over here with the brush and I'll show you. I'll start with Titus on the right, and then I'll move to Maximus on the left, and you'll see the difference in between the two. Maximus has gained a lot of weight since he's been here. I mean, you can't see his ribs hardly anymore. I mean, they're eating real good, and like I told you, and drinking real good. And so he's not the 98-pound weakling he was when I got him a week ago. Like when I walked in this morning, I was like, wow, I really can't even see your ribs today. So that's a good sign. But let me get the brush and I'll start brushing and let you see how they are with hands on. Now, as long as they're eating, I'm pretty good with them, but when they're not eating, if I try to approach them, they'll walk away from me. Titus. Hey, buddy. Easy. That was super encouraging right there. He didn't even flinch. He's got a little bit of shavings on his belly, but I'm not gonna really go down there. I'm not, just anything underneath his belly. He's still a little bit nervous. Now let's go over here to Maximus and see how he does. All right, that didn't go too bad. You can see the nervousness in him a little bit. He's gonna come back now. You saw when I touched him on the butt and I tried to move him over so I could get on his left side. He kind of turned and went up against the food trough. And I didn't want to try to slip in behind him because it could make him nervous and he can kick out. So I've only had Titus kick one time, and that was because I was trying to mess with his tail. But luckily I wasn't behind him. But I grabbed him by his halter and I just spun him around in a 360, and you see he just spun around, and when I spun him around, I did it so I could intentionally be on his left side. And it worked out pretty good. I'm pleased to see that Max is putting on the weight that he's putting on in just the week that I've had him. Like I said, you could see his ribs when I first got him. You go back and look at that video, and they're almost gone. I leave the doors open to the box stall so they can come and go as they please. And so I believe Max is going in there and laying down at night. There's 2 piles of manure in there, so he's been in there for sure. And you see how alert Titus is. His ears are erect and they're facing me. And if I ignore him, he'll come up and smell me. If I sit down on that bucket right there, he'll come up and smell me, and Max will come up and smell me. But little Max he's a follower. I'm surprised he's still there, because normally when Titus walks off, Max will go with him. Max goes wherever he goes. Max never initiates anything. He's a follower. But real pleased with how he's looking. I want to talk about the hurricanes for a second. Had several people ask me how we fared here at the farm, and we fared fine. We were prepared. We had hay and feed and generators, water, everything that we could have, everything that we could think of. When I say we, I'm talking about this guy right here. Everything I could think of to be prepared. I had the alleyway open going to the barn so that they could get underneath the shelter. They could get underneath the hay shelter over here. Had all 3 paddocks open so that they could, you know, get away from whatever threat there may be. And luckily, the eye of Helene was projected to go directly over us, but it went to the east of us, which saved us. But unfortunately for the people to the east of us, they got clobbered. Augusta, on the east side of Georgia, they're still without power today. And the Lowe's that's about 30 minutes from here out on the interstate, it is the first store that you come to when you're coming from North Carolina, South Carolina, and the east side of Georgia. And so that Lowe's was just decimated, and they were bringing in truckload after truckload after truckload of generators, and the lines were just, you know, miles long for people trying to get generators. So we didn't even lose power. So like I said, we were spared. And you know, and then Asheville, North Carolina is where you see all the devastation. You see it in the news every single night. Well, now we got Milton barreling down on us tonight in Tampa, Florida. And so it's going to be more of the same. But you've seen the Herculean efforts of all the volunteers going up there to North Carolina to help. You've seen mule trains going in and taking supplies in. You've seen people on horseback going in, taking supplies in. You've seen 50 private helicopters flying in and out of there, trying to get into real tight landing zones and get help to people, get people evacuated. The military is in there, but their helicopters are so big. You know, I was on Blackhawks. I did 4 hurricanes back to back to back in Florida, and then I did Katrina as well. And you got to have a big, I was Blackhawks, and we had to get you know, you had to have a big LZ to get a Blackhawk in there, and you got to have even bigger to get a Chinook in there. So these little private helicopters can shoot those smaller LZs and get supplies in. But what I wanted to say about that, and you're going to see more of it when Milton comes ashore tonight in Tampa, is we are so divided as a country right now. It's really, really sad. And it's sad that it takes Mother Nature to knock us in the dirt to show us how good that people really are and how good the humanity is around. It is the way it should be. It is brother helping brother and neighbor helping neighbor. There is no political divide, there's no race divide, and there's no gender divide. It is, you need help, I'm here to help. And they gladly accept it. They don't say, oh no, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're this, you're that. It's none of that. And it is so nice. And that's the way it was generations ago with our grandparents and our great-grandparents. You know, you would always hear about the barn raisings. There was a community barn raising. If he needed a barn or his barn built down, and you know, they would have big barn raisings, and you know, they would always cook you something and bring it to your house if there was an issue, if there was a death, or if you were new to the neighborhood. And we've gotten so far removed from that. And like I said, it's really sad that it takes Mother Nature to bring us all back together and show us how good humanity really is. And there needs to be more of that moving forward. It doesn't need to be just in times of natural disaster. It needs to be every day, forever, because the world operates so much nicer. You know, we're in this electronic age where everybody's got a cell phone, and nobody wants to communicate anymore. Nobody wants to talk face to face. Everybody wants to do everything digital. I'll shoot you a text, I'll shoot you an email. If you go into the doctor's office when you're in the waiting room, just look around in the waiting room. Everybody in there is on their cell phone. There's not one person talking. They go up and they talk to the clerk when they check in, write their name on the board and say what time my appointment is, and they go sit down. The first thing they do is pull up their phone and start looking at it. Kids come out of the womb today with a phone in their hand, basically, you know, electronic babysitter. Parents just shove that phone and turn on Peppa Pig or whatever the crap it is. We need to get back to brother loving brother and neighbor loving neighbor, and helping one another out in time of need. You know, I stopped and helped a guy out on the road. His car, he had a flat tire, and he didn't have a jack. And so I didn't know he didn't have a jack. I just pulled over and asked him if he needed help, and he told me he needed a jack. So I got him a jack, and I ended up taking him to the store and putting air in the tire because his tire didn't have any air in it. And you know, at the end of it, it was an 1.5-hour ordeal. You know, after it was all said and done, he asked me what he owed me. I said, you don't owe me anything. What I want you to do, though, is the next time you see somebody in distress, pull over and help them. Pass the favor along. We all need help in this world in one way or another, and we're so afraid of everybody. Everybody's a threat to us. That is our world. Everybody is a threat. If I don't know you, I'm going to walk right past you in the grocery store. I'm not going to say anything to you. I'm not even going to make eye contact with you. I'm going to look over at the green beans just so I don't have to look you in the eye and say, hey, how are you doing today? Everybody's a threat, and it is so, so sad. So I hope we can take what's going on in Asheville, North Carolina, and grow from it as a country. Did you notice how I went and brushed Grace? Or actually, that's Jean. How I was brushing Jean and I was standing directly behind Grace's butt. I did that intentionally to show you that I can do anything with these horses that I want to, and they are not going to act out or get crazy or anything. You typically don't ever stand behind a horse, but I've had these horses since they were 5 months old, and like I said, my buddy in South Dakota and his wife and their children imprinted them prior to that. So they know that there's absolutely no threat with me getting behind them. I can crawl underneath their bellies, I can go underneath their necks, I can do whatever I want. But I stood behind her intentionally and brushed the other one just so you could see. But did you see what she did when I moved off of her and started brushing? I don't remember now exactly what I did, but I do know that
the one backed up because she was like, I want some more loving. So she backed up and I started brushing her. They look so similar, and if I'm not looking at their face, I can't tell them from the back or from the side. I gotta look at their face to tell them apart. But they're really, really good girls. Over, 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 over. She didn't move over because she's not used to moving over out in the pasture, but in the stall, she would have moved over, but you saw I just squeezed right in between the two of them. Guys, if anybody's interested, I'm selling both of my wagons. My buddy in South Dakota went to Waverly last week and he bought the wagon that I've been after for the last couple of years. And so I'm gonna sell these two and buy that one. He's gonna hold it for me. I don't know how long he's gonna hold it for, but hopefully he'll hold it till I sell these. But this is my Roberts trail ride. Seats 12 adults in the back. Seat cushion is for the driver's seat. I've got the driver's seat up right now because of I've got the battery tender on. But it's got strobes all the way around. Brakes on the back, hydraulic brakes, and they've got new wheel cylinders and new brake shoes. New .3 brake fluid. That seat cushion right there goes on that driver's seat. It's got a full team pole with a double tree and the yoke out there. And then it's got a tow bar that's currently set up for a tractor drawbar, but could easily be converted over to a car. So that's for sale. That's my Roberts Trail Ride. And then I've got my blue parade wagon with 3 seats in the back. It's got a spring seat up in the front, hanging on the rails. These are just some cushions here. Disregard those. This is a low sprung buggy seat hanging on the rails. And then this is a no suspension seat that you put the little kids on. It's got the trunk in the back. It's got the reach. Everything's highly decorated, highly detailed. They didn't leave anything untouched. But that's my parade wagon, and that's my people hauler. So both of those are for sale so that I can buy the wagon that my buddy has up there in South Dakota. If you know of anybody or you're interested, get a hold of me. Real pleased with how the Belgians are doing and how Maxie's putting on some weight. I did get his Maximus's paperwork submitted to get him registered, and I'm still waiting on Titus's paperwork to get here from Mr. Yoder. Hopefully it'll be in the mail in the next day or two and I can get that submitted and get him registered in my name. We ought to be able to get them out here in paddock 3 right behind me so that Jean and Grace can get incorporated to them, and we can, get them incorporated into one happy herd. So
I appreciate you watching this week, and as always, remember who you are, be kind to those around you, stand up for what you believe in.